What happens when a brand famous for building exotic Italian supercars decides to create a military-style off-road monster with a V12 engine straight out of the contact? The result is one of the wildest and most misunderstood vehicles in automotive history. This is the Lamborghini LM002, also known as the Rambo Lambo, a super SUV decades ahead of its time. And today, we're going to dive deep into its history, its technical secrets, and why it remains one of the most fascinating collector cars ever made. The story of the Lamborghini LM002 is unlike any other in automotive history. To truly understand this monster, we have to rewind to the late 1970s when Lamborghini was in financial trouble and desperately searching for new markets. At the time, the brand was known almost exclusively for radical Italian supercars like the Miura and the Countach, but they were fragile businesses. Military contracts looked like a golden opportunity, and so Lamborghini decided to aim for something completely outside its comfort zone. The first attempt was the Cheetah project, developed in partnership with an American defense company. The Cheetah was a massive, rear-engined off-road prototype powered by a Chrysler V8. On paper, it was meant to compete for U.S. military contracts, but in practice, it was a disaster. The rear-engine layout made it dangerously unstable off-road, and the military quickly lost interest. That project ended in failure, but Lamborghini wasn't ready to give up. In 1981, they came back with the LM001, essentially a refined version of the Cheetah, this time with an AMC V8. But the fundamental problem remained. Putting the engine behind the driver in a heavy 4x4 created handling that was unpredictable, unsafe, and simply unfit for military use. Once again, the idea collapsed. But here's where things get interesting. Instead of abandoning the idea, Lamborghini's engineers flipped the entire concept on its head. They built a brand new tubular steel chassis, moved the engine to the front where it belonged, and equipped it with proper off-road hardware: permanent four-wheel drive, a heavy-duty transfer case, lockable differentials, and a rugged suspension system. This time, they decided to use their own weapon, the 5.2-liter V12 engine from the Lamborghini Countach, one of the most famous and exotic engines of its era. Suddenly, this wasn't just another military vehicle. It was something no one had ever seen before, an off-road machine with the beating heart of a supercar. The project was officially called Lamborghini Militaria, which is why the name LM stuck. By 1986, the result was ready, the LM002. And it wasn't designed just for soldiers anymore. Lamborghini had realized there was a lucrative civilian market for such a beast. Think about the audience: Middle Eastern royalty, oil magnates, celebrities in the US and Europe. People who wanted something that shouted power, wealth, and absolute uniqueness. For this elite clientele, a Range Rover or a Jeep just wasn't enough. And the LM02 delivered that image in spades. It was huge, weighing nearly 3 tons, with sharp, intimidating lines that looked more like a military armored vehicle than a luxury car. Yet step inside, and you found plush leather seats, wood trim, thick carpeting, and air conditioning powerful enough to cool the cabin even in the middle of the desert. This dual personality, brutal on the outside, luxurious on the inside, was exactly what Lamborghini wanted. Of course, the development wasn't without massive challenges. The biggest problem was tires. A vehicle this heavy, with a 450 horsepower V12 and true off-road ambitions, needed something the market simply didn't offer. Lamborghini turned to Pirelli, who developed the Scorpion tires, custom-made for the LM02. They were massive, could handle desert sand, rocky terrain, and even came in a version reinforced to resist gunfire. No SUV in the world had ever seen tires like this before. Another challenge was fuel. The LM02 could carry nearly 300 liters of gasoline because its V12 burned through fuel at astonishing rates, sometimes worse than 5 miles per gallon. But for the customers Lamborghini was targeting, fuel economy was irrelevant. These were people who wanted excess, who wanted to own the wildest vehicle in the world. In the end, the LM02 wasn't just a military experiment gone civilian, it was a statement. Lamborghini's engineers wanted to prove that they could build not only exotic supercars, but also a vehicle that could climb dunes, cross mountains, and still outrun most sports cars on the highway. They weren't chasing direct competition. No Mercedes G-Wagon or Land Rover could match this combination of luxury, size, and performance. This was a class of one, the world's first true super SUV. So by the mid-80s, Lamborghini had transformed a series of military failures into one of the boldest production vehicles of its time. They created a machine for kings, sheikhs, and stars, a machine that didn't just carry the Raging Bull emblem, but embodied it in every possible way, untamed, powerful, and impossible to ignore. The Lamborghini LM02 wasn't just a concept car made for shock value, it was a real production vehicle, and when it debuted in 1986, the numbers spoke for themselves. Under the hood sat a 5.2-liter naturally aspirated V12, the very same engine that powered the legendary Lamborghini Countach. It produced around 450 horsepower and nearly 500 newton-meters of torque, a figure that was outrageous for an SUV of that era. But raw numbers are only half the story. This V12 was paired with a 5-speed manual transmission from ZF, one of the most robust gearboxes of the time. Power was sent to all four wheels through a sophisticated permanent four-wheel drive system, with lockable differentials and a low-range transfer case. That meant the LM02 wasn't just a fast toy for paved roads, it was designed to climb dunes, crawl over rocks, and power through mud while carrying 4 passengers in luxury.
Now let's talk performance. Despite weighing close to 6,000 pounds, the LM002 could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 8 seconds, figures that rivaled some sports cars of the mid-80s. Top speed was around 108 to 25 miles per hour, depending on conditions and gearing, which was simply unheard of for such a massive off-road vehicle. To put it in perspective, most SUVs of the time struggled to reach even 100 miles per hour. The LM002 rewrote the rulebook. But performance came with costs. Fuel consumption was beyond excessive. Owners reported figures as low as 5 miles per gallon, sometimes worse. The massive 290-liter fuel tank wasn't a luxury, it was a necessity just to make the car usable for long trips. Yet, for its target buyers, oil sheikhs, celebrities, and collectors, fuel economy was never a concern. The LM002 was never about being practical, it was about being outrageous. Inside the cabin, the LM002 surprised many people. From the outside, it looked like a military machine, but step inside and you were greeted with plush leather upholstery, wood trim, electric windows, and powerful air conditioning. Lamborghini understood that its audience wanted luxury to match the power, and they delivered it. This duality, luxury SUV comfort paired with supercar speed, is exactly what modern super SUVs like the Lamborghini Urus are built upon today. When the LM002 hit the market, the automotive press didn't know how to react. Some journalists were fascinated, calling it the ultimate blend of excess and engineering bravado. Others criticized it as overbuilt, impractical, and too far removed from Lamborghini's roots. But one thing was clear, nobody could ignore it. It earned the nickname Rambo Lambo, perfectly capturing its wild, almost cinematic personality.
As for the market, Lamborghini managed to sell only 328 units between 1986 and 1993. At a price tag of over $120,000 in the 1980s, it was more expensive than many Ferraris and Rolls-Royces. The high cost, combined with its sheer size and absurd running expenses, meant it was destined to remain a niche product. But that exclusivity only added to its mystique. Owning one was a status symbol, a declaration that you weren't afraid of extremes. Buyers included Middle Eastern royalty, wealthy industrialists, and Hollywood stars like Sylvester Stallone. Imagine driving one of these down Rodeo Drive or across the dunes of Saudi Arabia. It was the kind of statement no other vehicle could make. For many owners, the LM02 wasn't just transportation, it was a weapon of presence. Still, critics had their say. They pointed out the heavy handling, the massive turning circle, and the intimidating cost of upkeep. Replacement tires, the custom-built Pirelli Scorpions, could cost thousands each. Routine maintenance on the V12 engine demanded the same attention and wallet as a Countach. It wasn't practical, and it wasn't meant to be. By the early 1990s, the LM02 had reached the end of its life cycle. Lamborghini's financial instability, coupled with a shrinking pool of buyers for such an extreme machine, meant production ended in 1993. On the surface, it looked like a commercial failure, but history would prove otherwise.
The legacy of the LM002 is monumental. It was the first true super SUV decades before that term existed. It paved the way for today's market of high-performance luxury SUVs. Vehicles like the Lamborghini Urus, Porsche Cayenne Turbo, and Ferrari Purosangue owe part of their existence to the LM002's audacity. More importantly, it showed the world that Lamborghini wasn't afraid to break its own mold, to experiment, and to push the boundaries of what a performance vehicle could be. So while it may not have been a bestseller, the LM002 achieved something even more valuable. It became an icon, an automotive legend that continues to capture the imagination of enthusiasts, collectors, and anyone who loves machines that refuse to follow the rules. Today, the Lamborghini LM02 sits at the intersection of myth and reality. With only 328 units ever produced, every surviving example is considered a treasure. For car collectors, this isn't just an SUV, it's one of the most unique and outrageous Lamborghinis ever made. When the LM02 was new in the late 1980s, it carried a price tag of around $120,000 to $134,000, depending on the market, which was a staggering amount at the time. Adjusted for inflation, that's the equivalent of well over $300,000 today. Back then, that made it more expensive than a Ferrari Testarossa, a Rolls-Royce, or even a brand new Countach. And yet, despite its exclusivity, sales were modest. Many thought it was too eccentric, too impractical. But fast forward to the present, and the LM002 has transformed into one of the most desirable collector cars from the 1980s and early 90s. Auction houses like R.M. Sotheby's and Bonhams have sold examples for prices ranging from $300,000 to over $500,000, depending on condition, originality, and ownership history. The very best examples, especially those with celebrity or royal provenance, have fetched more than $700,000. What makes it so collectible? It's not just the rarity, it's the story. The LM002 represents an era when Lamborghini wasn't afraid to gamble everything on wild ideas. It was decades ahead of its time, foreshadowing the modern super SUV craze that dominates luxury markets today. To own an LM002 is to own the blueprint of that entire movement. But let's be clear, buying one isn't for the faint of heart. Maintenance costs are eye-watering. The V12 engine, while glorious, requires constant attention. Servicing often involves removing large parts of the front end, and costs can run into the tens of thousands of dollars. The bespoke Pirelli Scorpion tires, originally designed specifically for this model, are no longer in production. Some owners rely on reproductions or modern replacements, but a correct set can cost as much as a small car. Even basic parts like filters, hoses, or interior trim are rare and expensive. For collectors, this means doing homework. A complete service history is essential, and originality adds tremendous value. Cars that have been modified, neglected, or run hard off-road may be cheaper, but restoring them can quickly outpace their market value. On the other hand, a well-kept LM002 is not only an appreciating asset, but also a guaranteed showstopper at any concours or Cars and Coffee event. Curiosities only make the LM002 more fascinating. Lamborghini once built a rally-prepped prototype with 600 horsepower to tackle the Paris-Dakar rally. Though it never competed officially, the idea alone adds to its mystique. The Sultan of Brunei, famous for his incredible car collection, ordered a one-off station wagon version of the LM002 with an extended roofline, making it one of the rarest Lamborghinis ever. Then there's the darker story of Uday Hussein, the son of Saddam Hussein. He reportedly owned a black LM00, which was eventually captured and destroyed by US forces in Iraq during the early 2000s. It was allegedly used as a bomb target during military training, turning one of the rarest Lamborghinis in the world into shrapnel. Stories like this add a sense of myth and tragedy to the LM00's legacy. Collectors also love the nickname that has followed the car since its debut, the Rambo Lambo. It perfectly captures the Hollywood meets military vibe that defines the LM00. It's aggressive, muscular, and larger than life. When you park one next to any modern SUV, even a Urus, it still dwarfs them with its raw presence. So how do enthusiasts view it today? With awe. The LM002 is seen as an icon of excess, a piece of engineering bravado, and one of the ultimate cars for any serious Lamborghini collector. It's no longer mocked for its impracticality. Instead, it's celebrated as one of the boldest creations in automotive history. And here's the final twist. While the LM002 was once considered a financial misstep for Lamborghini, it now looks prophetic. It was the first true super SUV, paving the way for an entire category of vehicles that now dominate the high-end car market. The Urus, Ferrari Purosangue, Aston Martin DBX, Porsche Cayenne Turbo, all of them owe part of their existence to the LM002. In short, the LM02 has achieved what only a handful of cars ever do. It turned from misunderstood oddity into a legendary collectible. For enthusiasts of exotic classics, it's a holy grail. For the world of SUVs, it's the ancestor that proved performance and luxury could coexist in a single, untamed package. And for Lamborghini fans, it will forever be the Rambo Lambo, a beast that broke every rule and, in doing so, created a legacy that still roars today. The Lamborghini LM002, the Rambo Lambo, still stands as one of the wildest machines ever built, a classic SUV with the soul of a supercar and the legacy of an exotic Lamborghini. It's a story of power, excess, and fearless engineering that continues to inspire collectors and enthusiasts all over the world. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about this super SUV legend? Would you ever add the LM002 to your dream garage? And which classic car, rare collector's car, or outrageous exotic would you like to see featured in our next video? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I love reading your stories and ideas. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most fascinating Lamborghini creations ever, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos on classic cars, exotic icons, and automotive legends. And don't forget to share this video with your friends who are passionate about cars. It helps the channel grow and brings more enthusiasts into our community. Stick around because the next car story might just surprise you even more.